Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me is Ross Grimsley, and we've got a very special guest tonight who I'll introduce in just a second. I want to remind you that PressBox Live is brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com, get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. That's right. You heard me right. Go to c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. That very special guest is somebody who I've now known for about 13 or 14 years, former skipper of the Baltimore Orioles, Dave Trembley, number 47. How are you, Dave?
Doing outstanding. It's great to be with you, Stan. It's real nice of you to have me on.
And you know Ross pretty well. I mean, you know him pretty
well.
good.
I can tell you, Ross might not remember this, but we crossed paths back in the Eastern League.
Yep.
He was the pitching coach at Norwich.
Right.
In 2003, and I was my first year with the Orioles. I was managing in Bowie, and I'll tell you, both those stadiums had something in common. The lights were absolutely awful. In both of those Norwich, it was like, oh, what a pitcher's park at night. And Bowie, the lights were just as bad. So
right.
it was you threw your. I remember he had this guy Booth Bonzer.
Yep.
That was one of his starters, and he could really throw hard. And I think every time he went in there on a Friday night, he threw them against us, and we didn't have much luck.
It was a huge park too.
Oh, huge it was a graveyard out there.
You had to get a howitzer to get it out of there.
That's it was down in a gully, right down in.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's cold and awful.
Hey, Dave, we remember that you managed the Orioles from like June 2007 to in June 2010. How did you come to the Orioles organization? Because it was really interesting because at the same time that Perlaza was let go, Andy MacPhail, who had come over from the Cubs to take over, and you were the third base coach for Perlaza, and it just seemed almost like that somehow Andy had orchestrated that, but I'd forgotten you were with the organization.
Yeah, I had managed in the Cubs organization going on my 11th year.
Under Andy, right?
In fact, I tell you another place where Ross and I have similar roots. He went to school in Jackson, Tennessee, and the Cubs, I had managed in AA for the Cubs. I'd been around the circuit. I'd managed here in Daytona. I managed in Orlando. I managed in Iowa. And in 98, the Cubs sold their team in Orlando and moved to Jackson, Tennessee, and we became the West Tennessee Diamond Jacks.
Right.
So I managed in the Cubs organization, and at the end of the 2002 season,
right,
the Orioles put out some information, and I tell you, it was really interesting how I got over to the Orioles. They were trying to establish fundamentals and go back to the old Oriole way, and that was kind of our forte,
right,
teaching fundamentals and old school baseball. And so I came to the Orioles, and they assigned me to Bowie, and I was in Bowie for 2 years. And then our AAA team had been in Rochester forever, but they lost that affiliation there, and they went to Ottawa. So I managed in Ottawa for 2 years. You
managed the 2 years in Ottawa, right?
I managed AAA in Ottawa, and then in 2007, I came to the Orioles as a coach, and it was interesting that Mike Flanagan was the GM of the Orioles when I came. And then when Sam got fired and I got hired on an interim basis, about a week later, Andy MacPhail came over as the president and GM from the Cubs. And so that was kind of our connection, but it was an interesting transition. But I was in the minor leagues for 4 years with the Orioles.
But that was a total coincidence that you were named interim manager and then Andy became your boss. But you had worked with Andy for a number of years.
Yes, it was total coincidence. Yeah. And the rumor at the time was, I remember, because when I had talked to Mike, he said, "Now, Dave, I don't know how long, you're going to be the manager." And we went out to San Diego, and that's where we started. and the rumors were they were trying to get Girardi
Yep, I
to
remember
be the
that very
manager.
well.
He was working on TV for the Yankees then, but it seemed like they knew Joe Torre was going to retire at the end of that year, which was 2007. As a matter of fact, we played the Yankees their last game of 2007, and Joe Torre was the manager then. It seemed like Steinbrenner came in and said, "No, you're not going to Baltimore. You're going to be named the manager at the end of the year when Torre retires." And so that's what happened. But my situation with Andy was just coincidence, because Jim Duquette and Flanagan were co-GMs then, and
Yep.
Jim Duquette was really instrumental in helping me, and so was Mike. They were really, really nice to me.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that was I remember Girardi, I believe, he orchestrated it the way he wanted to end up with the Yankees, but he deferred to the Oriole job. He says his dad was very sick and he wanted to spend time with him. I remember that was his sort of out, and I think his dad did pass away that summer.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Ross, go ahead. I know you got
Yeah.
a bundle of
Yeah.
questions for this
Yeah,
guy.
Dave, I know, 2007, you replaced Sam Palazzo, obviously, and then 2008, 2009, it seemed like a rebuilding time for the Orioles. I know you got off to a bad start in 2010. Was that a shock to you that they let you go? And how did that transpire?
No, when I got hired, Andy was really upfront with me. I mean, they told me it was going to be a rebuild. I mean, basically, my job was to restore some old fashioned baseball back to the Orioles. I knew that the Orioles weren't going to go out and spend a lot of money, get free agents. It is what we had. We had some young players that we acquired. We got Adam Jones in a big trade. We got George Sherrill, who ended up saving 34 for me one year. Um, we got Roberts. Wieters came in 2009. So my job was to develop those guys. We had a stable of young pitchers in Chris Gazelle. I mean, Lowen got hurt. Bergeson got hurt. Um, some guys that I thought were really going to pan out pitching wise didn't make it. Koji, I think one of the smart things we did with Cranny, we moved Koji to the bullpen. We moved David Hernandez to the bullpen. They ended up having good careers. Jim Johnson, we moved him to the bullpen. He ended up saving 50.
Right.
But it wasn't a shock to me when I got let go. I mean, I was basically told, Dave, we want you to rebuild this thing, get it in good shape. And I kind of had the feeling that, when the Orioles were about ready to get competitive again and compete in the American League East, you remember at that time, the American League East was the American League Beast. I mean, remember the Yankees
Right.
line up 1 through 9. Everybody, 1 through 9, guys had 20 more home runs. I mean, it was unbelievable. But the way I got let go in 2010, of June in 2010, was a little bit different, Ross. We've all been released, traded, fired, all that, but
Right.
we're in Yankee Stadium, and I think it was June 3rd. And I always had a real good relationship with a lot of people. Ken Singleton, worked the games on the Yes Network. He'd always come down for BP. It was a day game. It was a Wednesday afternoon game. And we were out there taking BP, and a lot of the writers were there, and a lot of the national media was there, and guys are coming down saying, "Hey, Dave, it's been great working with you, and best of luck to you." I really didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, that's real nice.
I
Yeah.
go, "Hey," and Mike Flanagan was on the trip, and we ended up getting beat. And when the game was over, Flanagan came down to the clubhouse, and he came in my office, and he said, "Hey, Dave, did Andy call you yet?" And I said, "No." And Flanagan wasn't real happy. He goes, "That son of a gun, he didn't call you yet." And I said, "No, what's going on?" And Mike just got up and left. Well, we go through security, we get on the bus, we go to the airport, we get on the plane, we're flying back to Baltimore because we're going to play the Red Sox the next day. And, we're up in the air, and, everybody's got their TVs on and, in front of your seat. And all of a sudden, Sports Center on the ticker on the Sports Center comes across breaking news. Orioles fire manager Dave Trembley.
Unbelievable.
You
Yeah.
hadn't been told
That's how
yet.
I found out. So that was kind of I'm laughing about it now, but it was
Oh, yeah.
it was a shock. So when we got back to the ballpark, I had called Andy, and it went right into his voicemail. I said, "I think you need to talk to me."
I think.
I'm waiting down here in my office, and a kid that was working for Andy then, who's the assistant GM now for the Phillies, Ned Rice.
Yeah.
Ned.
It was a really nice young man. Andy
Yep.
said, I'm going to send Ned Rice down there to get you and walk you up to the warehouse. I said, no, you don't need to send Ned down. I know how to get
Really? I know where it's at.
like walking the Green Mile,
Yeah.
So I walked up there. Now it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I walked in and I just said, hey, Andy, I know what's going on, but
Right.
maybe somebody could have handled this a little bit better because, I'm getting long-winded here, but
No,
I knew what we got into. I
Sure.
knew we weren't going to be very good.
Yeah.
We tried to do the very best we could. It was basically kind of like what Brandon Hyde's doing now. You're developing players and you're evaluating players.
That's going to be my next question.
And you find out that a lot of those guys are not major league players.
Right.
And so that's what they have you do. You run them out there, you play them, you pitch them, you go with what you got. And at the end of the year, there's a big turnover. And if you look back at the history of the 3.5 years I was there, how many of those guys ended up being major league players? And once they left the Orioles, what was their career like?
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't play anymore.
Yeah.
A few of them did. Roberts,
Yeah, no, right.
Jones turned out to be pretty good. Wieters, a Gold Glove, turned out to be pretty good, but a lot of them were just role players and were basically 4A players. They weren't the guys that you played with
Correct.
in Cincinnati and Baltimore that played
right.
teams.
Well, my next question is, over that period of time and losing, I don't care who you are, losing is not fun. Whether you're trying to, and so you kind of give the people an idea what Hyde's going through. Because like I said, for the coaches and manager, you can put a smile on and you can sugarcoat it all you want. And we're trying to do this and try to do that. It ain't fun losing every day.
No,
Can't be.
No, it wears on you. And Palmer was great. Jim Palmer, when I first got hired, he said, Dave, I'm going to take a picture of you now and I'm going to take a picture after. Because he said, you're going to age. And I remember my first spring training, the manager in 2008, I met Earl Weaver down at Fort Lauderdale. And I wanted to get Earl out to come out. And he never wanted to come out to spring training, but we finally got him to come out. And, we were doing fundamentals that day. And he said, kid, you're not going to be very good. He said, I'm just going to tell you right now, you're working these guys, you're doing everything right. But he said, your team's not going to be very good. And I said, Earl, I really appreciate you telling me that. But, I know. And, there were times you could look it up. We were scoring 6, 7, 8 runs a game, but we were giving up 9 and 10.
Right.
And after a while, it's not easy. And then the next, the thing is, after the games at that point in time, I had to go on the Massive Network and go down there and answer the questions and say good. The next day I'd walk out and do it again, walk down the right field line and sign autographs. And you knew that camera was on you, and it's not easy. It takes its toll on you. It takes its toll.
Sure.
You did a pretty terrific job under the circumstances. I wanted to touch on that because I've asked Brandon that, and I've asked some other people about it. What do you think ultimately becomes the reason that a Brandon Hyde or Dave Trembley or a Rich Renteria can last through the rebuild, or whether they get chewed up by it? Because I have a sense that Hyde might stick longer than you did or Renteria has at a couple locations. Can you quantify how a guy makes it past that point?
Yeah, I think you got to have a tremendous amount of patience.
Yeah.
You've got to have a great rapport with your coaching staff and the players, and you have to be very honest, I think, with your fan base and the media. I don't think you can try and make it better or bigger than what it is. But I think in Brandon, I talked to Brandon when he got the job, and I called him and I said, hey, you're going to be playing like a JV team for a while against the varsity. And I've been there, and I know what that's like. And, you're going to be playing like against with redshirt freshmen, your second year. And you're in a 5-year plan, not a 2 or a 3. Right. So it's going to take little steps at a time and little things at a time, and evaluate what you got and find out who the people you can count on. But I think the way the game is now, a guy like Brandon Hyde and a lot of the managers now, I think the word is, Stan and Ross, it's called, what is it called? Collaborative.
Yeah.
They work with the front office,
Right.
hand in hand with the front office. And I'm not being disrespectful or anything, but I'm sure when Ross played and Earl Weaver was the manager and Leland was the manager, and it's going to be interesting.
And Sparky Anderson.
Do you think there was collaboration between the front office?
One-sided.
Did they tell them who to pitch?
Yeah.
What the lineup was, who to play? I will say this: when I was the manager of the Orioles, Andy McPhail never told us who to pitch, who to play, what the lineup was. Yeah. He said, "Here are your guys. Find out what they can do." And that's why I think sometimes the new guy on the block, that's the young guy with no experience, he can last a long time, because he will take the suggestions from the people in the front.
You're being so nice.
And work more collaboratively.
Yeah. And I Stan, to be honest with you, I don't think even though I didn't have a big framework of reference, I'd managed 20 years in the minor leagues.
Right.
If I were managing in the big leagues now, I don't think I could, the computer's going to tell me who the lineup is or who the pitch is.
Right.
And then you're going to have to spin it when you talk to the one group you can't fool. And Ross was in. You can't fool the players.
Right.
Let me tell you something.
Absolutely not.
Those guys in that clubhouse, they know if you're in it for them or if you're in it for the other reasons. And I think for ourselves, quite honestly, when I was there in Baltimore, those guys knew I loved them, and they knew I loved the game, and they knew I loved the Orioles. And it wasn't about me trying to use somebody or do something to win a game to keep my job. And I'm not so sure that's not the case now.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a question. You mentioned Rick Kranitz before, and I'm not trying to turn this into a he said, she said, but I've always maintained that I thought that Buck Showalter's biggest mistake that he made, he inherited Rick Kranitz. And then when that first half season was over, he got rid of Rick Kranitz. His contract was up, and he brought in Connors. What was Connors' first name? Mike Connors. He brought in Bill Connors.
Billy Connors
with the Yankees.
Yeah, the former guy that had been with him with the Yankees. And Connors only lasted about 4 weeks.
Yeah,
we ended up with Richard Dare as the pitching coach, and I've heard some nightmares about that. But my point is, how good a pitching coach was Rick Kranitz in your estimation?
Well, see, Cranny and I, we were in the minor leagues together with the Cubs, for 10 years. So I was in every instructional league with Cranny. Cranny was a pitching coordinator. Rick Kranitz has got a great rapport with his pitching staff. He's a very good teacher, and he's very loyal to his staff.
Yeah.
But, when the manager is always going to pick the guys that he's comfortable with, I understand. That he, and Cranny, I remember Cranny, he always said, I'm a major league pitching coach. And he is. He did a great job in Philadelphia and left because, they went the other way to research and development. And boy, he's done a great job
same thing in Milwaukee. They outed him.
He's done a great job with the Braves, and he fits right in there because they've got young pitchers and filled with prospects in the minor leagues. And Cranny's got so much patience.
And I thought
excellent.
I thought he had the ear of the young pitchers, that they would, despite how bad 2010 was, I thought there was some improvement starting to show with that group of pitchers.
Well, I'm a big Rick Kranitz fan. I always have been. And it's not just because I, worked with him, but I know what kind of person he is. And I know, to be a coach, and Ross was a coach for a long time, the pitchers are different animals. You get those 11 or 12 guys, and they got to know you're in that foxhole with them. Right. And they got to know you got their back. and you're gonna do everything you can to help them. And I think that's what Kranitz is all about.
Yeah.
He does not cookie cutter everybody. He's not trying to make everybody into what he believes. He goes with what you can do, and
Right.
you run with it. Ross,
go ahead.
Yeah, Dave. One of the things, there's a bunch of things I want to ask, but if I can get, you were with Houston for several years. You went up. You're a coach, then you were a bench coach, and obviously the Orioles are trying to do a similar thing as the Astros. When you were there with them, I mean, you guys just started to turn the corner a little bit. You won 70 games the year you got let go. What happened there? You guys were starting to, you had lost 100 games, several years before that, and you just started to turn the corner, and all of a sudden you get let go again. What was the deal?
Yeah. It was interesting. I came over to I was the field coordinator before I went to the Astros. I was the field coordinator with the Braves. And Bo Porter, who had played for me in the minor leagues, had always told me, he says, Dave, I'm going to be a big league manager someday. And when I get there, you're going to cover me as a coach. And, we've heard that so many times.
Sure.
Yeah, right. Checks in the mail. Yeah, sure. Right. Well, I'm in an instruction league of September of 2012, and my phone rings at midnight, and it's Bo Porter. And he calls me, and it's the end of September, and he goes, Dave, this is Bo. And I said, yeah, I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning for these kids. What are you doing calling me so late? And he said, no, you don't understand. He said, we got the job. I said, what?
Oh, wow.
Said, we got the job. He said, on Monday, the Astros are going to name me the manager. And I told you that I'd always bring, he says, you're going to come and be my bench coach. And I said, Bo, I'm so happy for you. He says, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's when, Bo went there, and Jeff Luna was the GM. Elias was the scouting director.
Right.
Sig had just come on board. He was the big guy with the computer. They called it the model in Houston. The model. There wasn't a computer. It was the model.
Right.
And, we lost 111 games 2 years in a row. But I really think the reason Bo got let go and I went with him is what I was saying earlier, collaborative. Bo was not going to go with what was going on there with Jeff Luna. There was a disconnect. Bo wanted to win. I remember, we wanted Springer to make the club one out of spring training, and he didn't. They sent him down. We wanted Correa to make the club. No, he didn't. There was the best players didn't play. They didn't make the team. And if you look back on the years we were there, go back and look back on the rosters and see how many of those guys played in the big leagues after.
Right.
Altuve, Marwin Gonzalez, Michael, Jason Castro. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. Robbie Grossman has, he was there our second year.
Become a little bit of a player.
An everyday player.
Yeah.
Dominguez played at third, but 1 year he was gone. All of the pitchers, every one of them, were guys we got how to release players or this. And it was very, very obvious that Jim Crane, who was the owner, and Jeff, they weren't going to spend any money until the Astros got good. And when they got good, now you're going to get Correa, and we're going to go out and spend some money and sign this guy and sign that guy, and we're going to get competitive. And
sounds very similar to what's going on in Baltimore right now.
Well, pretty much. The other question I wanted to ask you, Dave, is, and you're alluding to it in a roundabout way, but I asked people this. I go, it seems like the baseball person, the baseball guy that was in the big leagues, the baseball guy that coached at the majors, the minors, that was a successful player, a successful coach. Those guys aren't wanted now. And I've heard some horror stories from Hall of Famers that people have talked to them. Don't talk to the players. I don't want you to talk to the players. Well, what am I supposed to do? Sign autographs and shake hands? Well, you can watch the games, but just don't talk baseball to them. I'm going, are you serious? They go, Grims, that's what they told me.
There's a lot of, we live in Daytona Beach, and we have a minor league club here. It was the Daytona Cubs forever, but now it's the Reds. And I've known the coaches on that staff, and they'll tell you, from their front office, just fill the lineup card out and let them play.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You really don't. I don't think there's a lot of value anymore, which hurts.
Yes.
Guys that have experience, guys that have been baseball lifers, very good teachers, very good developers. There's not a whole lot of respect or want for those kind of people right now. I think some places maybe hopefully it turns back to that. I don't know if it will.
A lot of people are hoping that. And I think a lot of people are seeing it, that there's a chance that some of the things, I get some of the things that are going on, understand analytics. We did analytics, but we did it with a pencil, a piece of paper, and a ruler.
Correct.
And use the best stuff. But I think, and like I said, you can combine the two, but I think the analytical people, your young Ivy League guys that are running the show, they don't want the baseball people around. And if you show any type of, not resentment, but if you go, well, I don't know about that, you're gone. I've heard that enough from a lot of people. They don't want the guys around, which is really sad. And I think some of the players, and I've talked to major league coaches, some of the players that are getting out of the game, they don't want to be in the game now because of that. And I'm going, that's so sad. And we had Dave Trembley on one night, and he goes, the players, he made that comment, but the players are missing out on a lot of vital information from ex-players that were Hall of Famers, very successful teachers, just minor league players, that they're missing out a lot of information that would make them so much better players. And the players don't even know it. Yeah. But they're missing. Yeah. I've asked several guys, did anybody ever come to you and ask what your opinion or something? No. These are Hall of Fame guys that were, no one asked them anything. I asked Madison Bumgarner one day when in the clubhouse in Baltimore, does anybody come and ask you any questions? He goes, no, Grims, I think they're afraid of me. I'm going, what? So, I mean, it's crazy. I just
experience is not well received.
Right.
I think, it's not sour grapes. It's call it what it is. You see most of the hires now are people that have little or no experience, and they hire people of their same background.
Correct.
From academia.
Right.
And I think the direction in a lot of programs now is we don't even do fundamentals. They don't do fundamentals.
No.
They hit. They throw on the side. If you were to go to Sarasota, go to any spring training complex, and Ross Grimsley, go down to the bullpen, and you'll see more people in the bullpen with cameras and electrodes.
I know.
iPads and this and that, and guys that are hitting are all geared up with. I don't know what we're doing.
No, exactly. I had people tell me, I've had coaches, that are minor league coaches, big league coaches, says, Grims, I can't explain this to you. You have to come and see it. Mm-hmm. You have to come and you can get as close as you can and watch some of it. You won't believe it. The game has taken another, who knows where it's going, but it's, and you would hope that seeing some of the things that are going on, it's just like the thing that's not talked about a lot is injuries. Holy cow, there were 300 injuries last year. 200 and several guys opted out, didn't play, but in 60 games there were 290, 280 injuries, and a lot of pitchers. Some of your top guys are having Tommy John surgery, which is skyrocketed since 1995. And then there's several reasons that I know. One of the reasons the guys are throwing harder than they did overall. Now it ain't 100 because the guns are so jacked up that but still, if it's getting to the point with certain tests they've done, research on the arm, the ulnar nerve, the ulnar area, come to the point where they're getting you're throwing a maximum speed that you're almost topped out now, because if you keep doing this, it's going to blow out more at that effort level. So it's something, and no one talks a lot about it, about the injuries now. So it's kind of confusing to me.
Dave, along those same lines, baseball is Major League Baseball as an organization has come out with this new master plan of how to handle minor league baseball. Is that just purely a dollar and cents thing, or do you think there really have been too many teams, too many players that are just trying to live the dream, but there's not really a lot of sense to them? Or how do you feel about the new makeup? We're not even going to have names like the International League, the Pacific Coast League. They're going to be AAA West, AAA East. Your thoughts on what you read about?
Well, it goes along with the draft. The draft, there used to be, endless rounds. I remember I had a guy that was the last guy picked in 1994. His name was Jason Maxwell. He was the last guy, 770th guy picked in the country. And he ended up playing in the big leagues 5 years as a utility guy. He was my shortstop in the minor leagues with the Cubs for 4 years. The draft is now down to 20 rounds. Last year, because of the COVID, it was 5 rounds. They've cut the draft down. I think it's money. I think that's one of the things. There's going to be 4 clubs,
Yep.
4 full season clubs, plus you can have your Gulf Coast League or your Arizona League, and you can also have your team in Latin America.
Right.
I think it's one of the good things that I do like. What they've done is the geographical locations. They've tried to move the teams closer, because I remember, Ross remembers, you would travel. I remember being in Orlando, managing Orlando, and we'd have to go to Memphis. It was a 16-hour bus ride.
And a crappy bus.
And you would play. I mean, there was no 500-mile rule or anything like that. You would play. And you'd always play your extra guys, that first day in. Hopefully they'd have some energy. But I like that geographically they've tried to move them closer together and move them closer, to the major league affiliates. I don't like that they've really taken the lifeblood out of some communities that have had professional baseball in their communities for 50 years, 60 years, a long, long time, and not understanding what that does for the people in that community that just live and die for those short season clubs, or for those kids to come in, they identify with them. But I also know realistically, I get it realistically, guys in low A ball, if you're not a high draft pick and you don't get a whole lot of money, chances are there are times you're going to be playing the game for 1 or 2 guys. You're playing that game because you got your number 1 draft choice pitching, and you might have your 2nd or 3rd round guy playing shortstop, and the other 7 guys are just fillers.
Yeah, they're just fillers. Yeah.
And that's why I've always tried to stress to guys, go to school and get your education. So that you have something to fall back on. But it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. What I'm reading and what I'm hearing is, there's 75 guys are going to go to big league camp. They put a cap on that. They're going to basically have, a taxi squad of guys. They're going to have split camps. The Orioles are going to be at Ed Smith, and then the other group's going to be over there at Twin Lakes.
Right.
And then if you need guys because somebody gets hurt, or somebody gets sick, God forbid, you can bring these guys up. But now when Major League Spring Training is over, the first part of April, now you're going to bring in your 2A clubs and your AA club, and those guys are going to ramp it up, and they're not going to play probably until sometime in May. So the season's going to be cut short again.
Well,
they haven't played in a year.
That was going to be my next question, is because you are a guy that is used to developing players. What did this last year do to 1,000 minor league baseball players?
I've talked to some players, they worked out. they worked out as best they could, but you get in shape in baseball by playing baseball.
By playing
Right.
baseball,
You
but
get
you also
shape.
learn the game from playing baseball.
And you learn the game with experience of situations. You get in shape as a pitcher. You pitch, you go sit down, you go back out, you sit, you pitch. That's how you get your arm in shape and your legs in shape. You get in shape by playing, running the bases, swinging, doing all that. They're going to have to be very careful with guys. I was thinking about, what some organizations did years ago with pitchers. They would call it piggyback.
Yeah.
They would use 2 starters to pitch in a game and split it 5 and 4.
There's going to be a lot of that type of thinking this year. It's got to be.
I think they're going to go to 6-man rotations.
I think so too.
Major League Baseball's got 26. Ross Grimsley, when he pitched in the big leagues, he probably was on a roster with guys, 9 pitchers, 10 pitchers. Now you got 14. You might have 15 on this year, because you're going to have to go. I'm going to go to Ross Grimsley tonight, and I'm going to say, okay, Ross, who's my long guy? And we're going to use 4 pitchers every night, because those guys coming out of camp are probably going to throw 60 to 75 pitches. If they can do that, they're going to have to back them off. I think they'll skip starts with guys during the season. I think position players, the everyday guy that plays 6 or 7 days a week, I don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
3 days in a row, and I think you're going to have to give a guy a day off. You're going to have
the amping up of the innings. Last year the Orioles threw 518 innings. This year they're going to need to figure out how to get 1,450 innings. It's a huge difference, and you got to be very careful on taking a John Means from 37 innings even to 137.
Well, Ross knows better than I.
Yeah.
Those kids will never say they don't want to pitch.
Right. Exactly.
Great. But the following year is when it will take its toll, or down the road, it will take its toll, because fatigue will lead to them changing their mechanics, and that's when they'll get hurt. And
even now it's a max effort thing. Max effort fastball, max effort breaking ball. And we saw John Means last year. He was throwing up to he was throwing 5 miles,
he got
4 miles an hour harder, and it wasn't the same pitcher. He was more of a thrower, and he had some arm issues and stuff. Thank God he didn't end up having to have anything seriously surgically repaired. But here's a guy that big emphasis on power, throwing the ball harder. He can't pitch that way. He's not that kind of pitcher. So he able to back off, use his changeup and his breaking ball, and he got back on track. But that's the one thing now. Guys, they're trying to get guys to throw harder than they're capable of throwing. You see a lot of guys break down. Syndergaard, Verlander, who's up, Chris Sale, all these guys, and obviously mechanical, problems at times, which lead to that too. But I think guys overthrowing, maxing out, max effort, you see a lot of guys are having some problems.
Well, you see, Ross, a lot of the players, they go to these academies in the off season, and they're there to video and to detect and to improve arm speed and velocity.
Yep.
It's not how to pitch.
No.
It's to light up the gun. And, with the way the hitters are now with the lift, now it's the seam fastball to pitch up, power, harder. And you see a lot of guys that they break down, or it's interesting. You get around the All-Star break in the big leagues, and those guys now, they know the All-Star break's coming. And so they're going to miss a start. They're going to get the 4 days off there. So now there's 10.
Yeah.
And now they're going to pitch on the back end coming back. So they need 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There'll be 2 weeks for them to recover, because they have thrown so much, so hard.
Right.
And yourself, it's 100 pitches in the big leagues. Oh, the stress that goes with that.
Now, oh God,
is
really
astronomical. The stress of throwing,
and the fact they're throwing more pitches to hitters. overall, you got 100 pitches by the 4th or 5th inning, and pretty soon that's, it used to be where I could throw 75 pitches in a game and throw 120, and the 75 I threw were more stress on your arm than the 125. Now, no, you got 100 pitches by the 4th or 5th inning, you're done.
Well, this is the other thing that's what I'm reading is going to be interesting in spring training. Spring training is all about the pitchers. Let's be honest. Spring training is about pitchers and to get pitchers in shape. It takes the hitters a week to get them going. You get your arm going in shape, your legs, and you hit in a week. But the pitchers, you can't ramp it up.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to take your time and build up to it. And I'm reading that one of the things that's going to happen in spring training games this year, which was always my bugaboo in the minor leagues, was that in spring training games, they would roll innings. Okay.
Oh, God,
you get the 15 pitches or 20 pitches and they'd say, roll it. And the inning would be over. Major League Baseball has got the okay to do that in spring training this year.
Yep. Yep. I've heard the same
and so
thing.
how are you going to get guys in shape?
No, really. Yeah. I hadn't heard that one. That's a new one. I haven't heard that.
I had heard that.
But hopefully this stuff, when things die down and somewhat get back to somewhat normalcy, and the fact that we got the collective bargaining agreement coming up after the season,
could be
that's
another
really interesting. What happens with that? I mean, that's something that has to get fixed. They have to agree on stuff, or this game is going to be in a lot of trouble. The fans will just revolt. I think.
Dave, before we let you go, we've run a little long, and it's okay, but I just have to ask you a couple personal things.
Sure.
You managed the Orioles from June of 07 to June of 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were a coach for 2 years. Do you have a major league pension?
Yes.
You did.
Yes, I do.
You did last long enough. And then minor league, is there a minor league pension of any kind?
Oh yes, it's called a NUP, non-uniform player personnel,
Okay.
And you get fully vested, I think, after 10 years, and I got over 20.
Good for you.
I mean, I got close. I got 30. 30.
Right.
I got 31.
So I got.
You guys are both wealthy beyond your means.
Oh yeah,
I got a little over 6 years of major league time, and I got over 30 some years of minor league time. So
you're okay.
was fortunate.
Hey, I know you live in Daytona, and we talked about this before the air. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your wife, Patty, who is a huge Daytona 500 fan. And you stayed home yesterday. She was out there at the Daytona 500.
Yeah, she would never do that for I tell her, baseball, we would have rain delays, but my wife was born and raised here in Daytona Beach, and she was going out to the races with her dad when she was 7 or 8 years old. So she carried on that tradition until her dad passed away, which was when I was managing in Bowie in 2003. Right. But every year she's gone to the Daytona 500, and she goes for the entire week because they have the Twins and the trucks and the Bud Shootout, and they have all that. And then it culminates on Sunday for the Super Bowl of racing, which is the Daytona 500. So she left yesterday morning at 9:30 in the morning. We have
she should have been home about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
But the race started at 2:30, and 15 laps into it was the rain. They had it for a 6-hour rain delay.
Wow.
They didn't start the race back up until after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
It ended like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And
is that the latest finish ever for the Daytona 500?
I don't know.
And you said the winner, Mike McDowell, was 100-to-1 shot.
He was 100-to-1 shot, and on the last lap was the worst crash in the world. And
it was terrible.
There was an opening of a fireball, and he went through
it. Yep.
And ended up getting the checkered flag and won.
Did she come home talking about it, or were you sound asleep when she got home?
Oh, no, I went to bed. I watched the college basketball game last night, and I texted her and I said, honey, the front door is locked. You're going to have to use your key to get in.
Hey, Dave, thank you so much for your time tonight.
This was
really, Dave. Thank you, buddy.
Listen, Ross, great seeing you. Thank you
Well,
Great
so
seeing
much.
you,
we'll
man.
try and reach out to you sometime during the summer, okay?
Okay, that'll be great,
All
Stan.
right,
Thanks so
really
much.
enjoyed it.
Bye.
For Dave Trembley, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles. Wednesday night, Gary Stein and I will have Jack Gilden on. Jack is a local ad man, retired, that's become a sports writer. He wrote a book on Johnny Unitas's relationship with Don Shula called I've got it right here, Collision of Wills. He's got a new book that will be out within the year on spectacular bids. So we'll talk to him on Wednesday night. Remind you that Press Box Live has been brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. Thanks again to Dave Trembley and my partner, Ross Grimsley. We'll see you down the road soon.